So today I want to talk about Resident Evil 2, the remake. I know this game is like 5 years old and I'm a bit late to the party, though I was recently playing this game, and I just wanted to talk about it. So without further ado, let's get into this video. Visually, this game obviously looks pretty good. I don't have anything bad to say about it. The graphics are good and it's not, you know, horrible looking. There's not really much bad to say about the visuals. I think they're self-explanatory, so yeah, in terms of the basic gameplay, it can be a little bit over the top. I would argue that it's not my favorite combat system. And I know in Resident Evil 4 you can like roundhouse kick people, but you can't really do that in this game. The shooting is also somewhat inconsistent, to be fair. I will say though that the inventory system is pretty good, and I actually do really like it. Like being able to craft items and combine items, examine items. It's very interesting with how it works, and I actually think it does a pretty good job in that regard. So, like, the survival mechanics are actually a positive they have. And despite the things I just said about the combat, it does a very good job with the enemy variety. You have the zombies who can run at you and, chase you down and, bite you. And you can pull out a knife if you have one to defend yourself from them. You also have these, like weird carnage looking like things that crawl on the ceiling, which can also chase you, which can pretty much do the same, though they take even more damage. And the last but not least thing I would say is Nemesis, which he appears occasionally throughout the campaign, and he is terrifying. So there's a lot of things I like about the gameplay. Only thing I would wish was better gameplay wise, even though this game is like 5 years old and I'm way late after the party, is the combat could be a little bit better. But other than that, I did really like the core gameplay, and with how the crafting system works, the healing system as well, and how that system is with caution being like the middle when you're half health, and then extreme caution, which is when the health is red, and then green, which means you're basically fine. I like how that system worked and how you can heal when finding items. That actually was a very interesting thing that I did like about it. So yeah, there were good things gameplay wise. Story wise, it's good. It's good. It's a good story. Does a good job. The second campaign adds even more to the first campaign, and I think it does a fair job with it. I don't think it's a bad story. There's a decent amount of stakes for it, and the final act in the Leon's campaign was pretty good. There's also a lot of just interesting story beats. I feel like it's more self-explanatory though at this point. Throughout the game, you also collect keys. Well, you can, and also key cards. These are in the form of puzzles. Puzzles that are actually very like interesting because you have like the keys you can find by doing these puzzles, and these puzzles can basically tell you where to go. And I think that works pretty well for the most part. When you find their keys, it can be a little bit of chore to navigate, but once you get the hang of it, it does start to become noticeable. And there's also hidden secrets, papers, which help you find certain items, like safe codes, which can give you more items, button keys. But you have to be on the lookout because this game puts you on your toes throughout the entire campaign. It does that. So that is to keep in mind. You also have a storage booth and save desks, which you can find occasionally throughout the campaign, which basically save your data, and you can basically do that. I think this game does a lot, like, with that, and that's pretty interesting. How the map is interconnected, and that kind of gets you going in certain places and finding things you wouldn't have normally found before. It can, though, be a little bit weird to navigate, personally speaking, but it's not so much of a big deal if you get used to it and when you think about it. In conclusion, I think this game does a lot very well. Resident Evil 2, the remake, is a very solid game and a good way to remake a game. I know the third remake kind of got some flack when it came out, and there's Resident Evil 7 and 8, which are also games that came out, which were pretty good in my personal experience. But Resident Evil 2, the remake, just does a lot very good. And even though I did kind of add some critiques to this game in between my review, I did like a lot of what this game offered. It's a very interesting and pretty well made survival horror game. It's a very short game to beat, at least on your first playthrough, but it still does a lot good when you get to think about it. And especially on a replay, it gets you actually thinking about the game, so I don't mind it. This game was a great way to remake the original Resident Evil 2, which I didn't really get the chance to play. And honestly, if this is your first time playing Resident Evil 2, I think Resident Evil 2, the remake, is probably one of the more definitive versions of playing it. Though I could be wrong. Maybe the original was very good too. But hey, the remake 2 for 2 does hold up pretty well, and it is pretty good. I would argue it's well worth your time.